Hey everybody, Neil Thompson from Teach the Geek here. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. To learn more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. When it comes to being confident when giving a presentation, there are a few tips that I have, and hopefully they're helpful to you. Well, the first one I think is pretty obvious, but I'll state it anyway. It's always try to talk about things that you're actually knowledgeable on. And things that you actually believe in. It's so difficult to speak on something that you don't necessarily believe in. I remember when I was in high school, we used to have these debates in English class, and there'd be a pro side and a con side, and there'd be a resolution. And I always found it really difficult to be on the side that I didn't agree with because I just never felt I was very convincing in making arguments for that side. And that certainly was something I had to do when I was in high school. But when I when I left that started working, and now I'm more concerned with talking about things I actually think are true as opposed to taking a side and having to argue that side. So whenever possible, talk about things you actually believe in, and I think that your confidence will shine through in that way. Another thing that you could try to do is tell stories. And when it comes to stories, it's telling stories that you're involved in, stories you know really well. Don't tell other people's stories. That won't bode well in building confidence at all. But when you're telling your own stories, you know your own stories really well. Certainly make sure that the story applies to whatever you're talking about. But when you talk about stories in which you're involved in and stories you know very well, that confidence is going to shine through as well because you're talking about yourself, and who knows you better than you? I definitely am a big fan of that piece of advice of just using stories that you're involved with and know well to convey the points you want to convey and appear confident. And then the last point I want to make has to do with practicing. You certainly want to practice before you give your presentation. I was a member of Toastmasters for a number of years, and a part of Toastmasters is what's called table topics. With table topics, you're practicing impromptu speaking where you're given a question that you didn't know beforehand, and you have to give either a 1 to 2 minute answer to that question. And a minute talking about something that you weren't prepared to talk about is actually really long. It doesn't seem that long when you think about it, but when you actually are in it and doing it, it's like an eternity. But when if you're giving a presentation and you're practicing something beforehand, then that's where you can really shine because now you can figure out the best way to put this presentation together. You're not coming up with things on the fly. So especially if you're giving a technical presentation to a non-technical audience, it's so important to practice beforehand because now you're going to figure out what do I need to say first, second, third? What's the logical flow of this presentation need to be for it to make sense to this non-technical audience? And when you actually think about that, and put some deep thought into it, your confidence is gonna shine through as well because now you're way more prepared as opposed to somebody who's getting up there and just speaking, and it comes out as it comes out. People are asking questions afterwards that you thought you had answered, but because you didn't prepare, because you didn't put things in a manner that people could understand, well, your your confidence is shot, and they didn't get the best presentation they possibly could have gotten. So those are the three tips that I really wanted to address when it comes to appearing confident when giving presentations. Number one, you want to talk about things that you actually believe in and things that you know. Number two, you want to tell stories that you're involved with or stories that you know very well. And then three, you want to practice beforehand. And with all three of these tips, your confidence is bound to skyrocket. Hopefully, that's been helpful. Again, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe.